So I think I would may I
Please.
request someone to start with
Sure,
the
sure.
recitation from the Quran, Holy Quran. Atta Sahab, you can, yeah.
तो आप मेरा ख्याल
मंसूर साहब,
आप तिलावत कर दीजिए।
मैं अच्छा किनको बता रहे हैं, तिलावत करा दीजिए किससे।
तो हाँ मतलब चूंकि यहाँ पर
Request someone to start with the recitation from the Quran, Holy Quran. Atta Sahab, you can, अच्छा ये इको बंद कर दीजिए, इको नहीं होना चाहिए। ठीक है, मैं खुद ही एक आयत की तिलावत करता हूँ,
जी।
आधी थोड़ी सी, जो हम बार बार कहते रहते हैं। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन, अर्रहमानिर रहीम, मालिकि यौमिद्दीन, इय्याका नअबुदु व इय्याका नस्तईन, इहदिनस सिरातल मुस्तकीम, सिरातल लज़ीना अनअमता अलैहिम गैरिल मग़दूबि अलैहिम वलद्दाल्लीन। Amin. That means that I begin with the name of Almighty Allah, who is the most beneficent and merciful. And in this, there is a praise of the Creator, Lord, and the Sustainer. And then there is a prayer, God, give us the way which will bring us a reward, and don't give us the way which will lead, God forbid, anyone astray. So that's a prayer, and after that, I may say that today is what's being celebrated as Human Rights Day, International Human Rights Day. And the context is that on this day in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted, as that was a watershed or turning point for humanity after two wars, when lot of blood had been shed. There was need for a kind of change in system, regime, thinking, understanding, so that we could have a peaceful world where human beings would live with honor, dignity, and have their safe life, security, and dignity. So that's how the efforts were made, and ultimately the United Nations that adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that has 30 clauses where most of the rights are enshrined. And that's how I would briefly say that that was a turning point. And after that, many constitutions were adopted in the world, and most of them had the impact of the rights of the human rights of the people as enshrined in Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it started a very good agenda where the human equality, and then liberty, and then dignity, they got the prime position as values for the human activities, especially for governance, as human rights are the rights which are available to a person vis-a-vis state. So state has to honor the rights of the human beings, because state comes into existence for the benefit and well-being of the humanity and human beings, the people it has. So the values in Universal Declaration of Human Rights are very clear, and they are to be followed by the states, and most of the state activities should fall in line with those values which are basically giving the right position to human being on this planet or in the world or in a state or in a locality. But the most important is the governance part. They should be prime in governance. So the human rights, that means human dignity, values of justice, equality, they must be liberty, they must be prime in governance, in shaping the policies. And that's why this Institute of Objective Studies, as an institution which is doing academic activities objectively for nation building, for proposing good ideas, and also suggesting some corrections wherever they are required. That's very important. Academically, it's not any this that kind of it's not a political forum, so it's merely suggesting corrections wherever we need to have them. So I would say that this Human Rights Day is very much important for discussing the human rights and this governance so that it's better understood. And we have a very distinguished panel today with us. And we have with us today Advocate N.D. Pancholi, who is, standing counsel of People's Union for Civil Liberties. It's a very prestigious body working for the advancement of the human rights of the people. And he has been a very good activist, and he believes in hard work. He is a self-made person, a successful. He is in himself a successful story, and success not by conference, but success by his hard work. And his thought is that the young lawyers they must work very hard, and they must focus too much on their professions. And legal education is presently focusing much on professional skill development. They should take benefit of that and should come up well. And at the same time, he gives an advice that money desire or desire for money does not help much in career. There should be an initiative within. There should be a zeal within. There should be a spirit of service within. That can make you make a career, and that has made him also a very prominent lawyer, and that also in the sector of human rights. He believes in democracy, independent judiciary, and fair governance. We have other two panelists, Dr. John Dayal, very prominent journalist and a political and human rights activist. I'll give his description later. And we are having Vidya Bhushan Rawat Saab also, and he is also a very prominent activist and a good contributor to academics and thought process. I'll give the details later on, but I think I must now invite Advocate N.D. Pancholi Saab, kindly come and deliver your talk on the day, this Human Rights Day. Institute of Objective Studies invites you with open heart and and waits for your this talk. And at the same time, I would say that it's Professor Zadam Khan who is chairing the session, and he will give his remarks at the end. And he is the Secretary General of the Institute of Studies and a known political scientist. He has been associated with Jawaharlal Nehru University and Jamia Millia Islamia, and has worked on various areas in Africa and elsewhere. So he will be chairing the session. I request him to chair it. And at the same time, I again request Advocate N.D. Pancholi Saab to kindly take over the floor and deliver your words of wisdom. for the promotion of human rights in the country, in the world. Pancholi Saab.
शुक्रिया वानी साहब और खान
Okay. मंसूर साहब.
जी नेटवर्क का प्रॉब्लम है पंचोली साहब की तरफ.
I can speak now.
So John Dayal has joined. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Dayal.
No, what I'm saying is, if Pancholi Sahab has
Great.
if Pancholi Sahab has a connection problem, I can say now.
Let us see for a minute.
Yeah, sure. Well, what I wanted to say was I'm here, so.
You are a young and old friend. So,
Yeah. I don't accept invitations from enemies.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. But
we are very old friends.
Yeah, that's what. Young, I said young. I thought you must not get the idea of being old. You are not old. You are young, old.
Very young. Yeah.
So we want you to be young always. तो मंसूर साहब आप देख लीजिए कैसे क्या लग रहा है आपको.
पंचोली साहब आ गए हैं दोबारा.
पता नहीं ये कैसे डिस्कनेक्ट.
अच्छा आ तो गए वीडियो में. हाँ ठीक है. पंचोली सर आप बोलिए. अब
कैसे आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
जी
आ रही है.
आवाज आ रही है.
अच्छी खासी आ रही है.
हाँ पता नहीं ये कैसे डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया अचानक.
कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात.
हाँ
ठीक है सर आप बोलिए.
ये आज का दिन जैसा कि वानी साहब ने कहा एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण दिन है. सारी दुनिया में मनाया जाता है और हम भी मनाते हैं. मानव अधिकार असल जब से हमारा हम अगर फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल की याद करें, हमारे स्वतंत्रता संग्राम को याद करें, तो स्वतंत्रता संग्राम था कि हम ऐसी सरकार होगी जो कि अच्छी सरकार होगी. आज का विषय है गुड गवर्नेंस. तो जो गवर्नेंस उस समय अंग्रेजों का था, विदेशी शासकों का, उसको देखते हुए एक आवाज उठती थी हिंदुस्तान में कि हम अपनी सरकार बनाएंगे जो एक अच्छी सरकार होगी. और उसी के लिए वो संघर्ष चलता था. और उसी संघर्ष के दौरान जो 1931 में कराची का रेजोल्यूशन, उसमें फंडामेंटल राइट्स का रेजोल्यूशन पास हुआ कि भाई सरकार हमारी ऐसी होगी जिसमें फंडामेंटल राइट्स को बहुत महानता दी जाएगी, उसको बहुत महत्व दिया जाएगा, उनकी सुरक्षा होगी. और वो फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो थे उसमें बहुत सारे ऐसे थे जो कुछ तो हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में हैं और कुछ उन्होंने डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल में कर दिए, जैसे रोजगार का अधिकार. आज हम देखते हैं कि अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट सिचुएशन कितनी भयानक हो चली है, बेरोजगारी इस देश के अंदर. तो उस समय 1931 में ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण माना गया कि भाई रोजगार जो है वो कोई भी, हम जब आजाद होंगे कोई बेरोजगार नहीं होगा और उसको रोजगार का अधिकार एक फंडामेंटल राइट होगा, है ना. वो भी उस समय पास हुआ. तो ये एक लगन हमेशा से थी कि जब हम आजाद होंगे तो एक ऐसी सरकार होगी जो गुड गवर्नेंस होगा, गवर्नेंस अच्छा होगा, वेलफेयर सरकार होगी और उसमें फंडामेंटल राइट्स होंगे. तो जब हम गुड गवर्नेंस की बात करते हैं तो उसमें कुछ मुख्य बातें होती हैं कि भाई गुड गवर्नेंस का अर्थ क्या है। कुछ उसके महत्वपूर्ण बिंदु हैं जिसमें ये है कि पार्टिसिपेशन, भागीदारी हो, लोगों की, आम जनता की, गरीबों की, हर एक की उस सरकार के अंदर भागीदारी हो। और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण जो गुड गवर्नेंस का जो बिंदु है, जो आधार है, वो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। हमने के जो भी हमारा हम जिस कानून के अनुसार हम चलेंगे उस वो एक लिखित होना चाहिए और एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन होना चाहिए जिसको बोलते हैं, जिसका आधार है रूल ऑफ लॉ, कानून का शासन। तो कानून का शासन ये आधार होता है गुड गवर्नेंस का। तो ये भी सोचा गया था, हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन उसी के लिए बनाया गया था। और बहुत सारे उसमें वो उसका बेसिस होगा न्याय, जस्टिस एंड पीस, लोगों का वेलफेयर, आम लोगों का, और आम लोगों की और रेस्पॉन्सिवनेस। वो सरकार जो गवर्नमेंट होगी, इट मस्ट बी रेस्पॉन्सिव टू द स्टेक होल्डर्स, टू द पीपल हु आर कंसर्न। तो इन सब बातों को देख के अगर हम देखते हैं कि गवर्नेंस में ये बातें होनी चाहिए, जवाबदेही होनी चाहिए, अकाउंटेबिलिटी और ट्रांसपेरेंसी, पारदर्शिता, ये होनी चाहिए। तो और सबसे महत्वपूर्ण जो गुड गवर्नेंस का आधार है वो ये है कि वह ऐसी सरकार किस प्रकार से लोगों के जो मानव अधिकार हैं और उनके जो नागरिक स्वतंत्रताएं हैं, सिविल लिबर्टीज, उनको किस प्रकार से प्रोटेक्ट करती है। उसका प्रोटेक्शन उस सरकार को, गवर्नमेंट को, उसका ये कर्तव्य है, उसका ड्यूटी है कि इन नागरिक अधिकारों को, मानव अधिकारों का सम्मान करे। तो ये सब गुड गवर्नेंस के आधार हैं। और इसीलिए जब हम ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात करते हैं तो गुड गवर्नेंस में ह्यूमन राइट्स एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण अंग है गुड गवर्नेंस का, मानव अधिकार। लेकिन हम जब से आजाद हुए, आजादी से पहले तो संघर्ष था ही, लेकिन आजादी के बाद भी ये संघर्ष लगातार चलता रहा है मानव अधिकारों के प्रोटेक्शन के लिए, है उसके बचाव के लिए। और अगर हम पिछला देखें तो जो कई बहुत सारे ऐसे पड़ाव आए जिसमें हमने देखा कि किस प्रकार से मानव अधिकारों का हनन हुआ। जैसे कि इमरजेंसी का जो पीरियड है या उससे पहले जो आंदोलन चले, वो आंदोलन भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ थे। एक सरकार जिस सरकार से कुछ आशा करते थे वो सरकार वो नहीं कर रही थी लोगों के लिए, तो उसके विरोध में लोग आवाजें उठा रहे थे। तो वो उसका दमन करने के लिए सरकार ने किस प्रकार से इमरजेंसी लगाई और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बहुत सारे ऐसे काम किए जो हम कह सकते हैं कि वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ थे। लेकिन इन सब के अंदर मानव अधिकारों की प्रोटेक्शन के लिए जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण जो रोल है वो है जुडिशरी का। जुडिशरी को समझा जाता है कि वो अगर कहीं कोई भी सरकार कुछ करे या कोई भी इंस्टीट्यूशन कुछ करे, लेकिन जहां कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पर आंच आएगी उसको प्रोटेक्ट करेगा हमारा जुडिशियल सिस्टम। सुप्रीम कोर्ट, हाई कोर्ट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट, इनको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पावर्स हैं कि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को देखे कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के हनन ना हो, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में जो वैल्यूज हैं उनका हनन ना हो। और इसीलिए आर्टिकल 32 बनाया गया है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर कि अगर नागरिक अधिकारों का हनन होता है, मानव अधिकारों का हनन होता है, तो एक आम नागरिक सीधा सुप्रीम कोर्ट पहुंच सकता है। यह अधिकार कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में दिया गया है और जुडिशियरी से ये आशा की जाती है कि वो हमारे अधिकारों की, नागरिक अधिकारों की रक्षा करे। लेकिन हम देखते रहे हैं कि किस प्रकार से सरकारें जो होती हैं, जब भी आती हैं, वो हमेशा कोशिश करती हैं कि किस प्रकार से ये जो इंस्टीट्यूशन है, जो महत्वपूर्ण इंस्टीट्यूशन है, जुडिशरी, कोर्ट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट और हाई कोर्ट्स, इनको किस प्रकार से अपने कब्जे में किया जाए, अपने अधिकार में किया जाए। और आपने देखा होगा कि जब इमरजेंसी के अंदर हजारों लोगों को गिरफ्तारियां हुई थी और पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स की गिरफ्तारियां हुई थी जगह जगह, तो देश भर के अंदर उन्होंने जो डिटेन्यूज थे, जो कैदी थे, उन्होंने हैबियस कॉर्पस पिटीशंस डाली थी डिफरेंट हाई कोर्ट्स में। तो उस समय मेजॉरिटी ऑफ हाई कोर्ट्स, तकरीबन 8 हाई कोर्ट थे, उन्होंने ये जजमेंट दिया कि जो सरकार ने गैर कानूनी तरीके से लोगों को अंदर जेलों में डाल दिया है, ये बिल्कुल गलत है और उनको छोड़ना चाहिए। उन्होंने सरकार के खिलाफ एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण फैसला दिया, ज्यादातर हर हाई कोर्ट ने। और उसके बाद सुप्रीम कोर्ट में सरकार आई और उसको चैलेंज किया, और सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जो उस समय जो दबाव में था, सुप्रीम कोर्ट जिस प्रकार से दबाव में था सरकार के, उन्होंने उन सारे हाई कोर्टों के फैसलों को पलट दिया। और उसमें एक आर्गुमेंट ये भी चली कि अगर कोई सिपाही किसी को ये जानते हुए कि ये बेकसूर है, ये जानते हुए कि इसने कोई गलती नहीं की है, और बदनीयत से, अपनी बदनीयती से अगर किसी को गोली से मार दे, तो क्या उसको कोई बचाव का रास्ता नहीं है, कोई रेमेडी नहीं है। तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस तरह शेमफुल जजमेंट वो दी, शर्मनाक जजमेंट। ये उस जजमेंट में लिखा, एडीएम जबलपुर केस उसको बोलते हैं, उसमें ये लिखा हुआ है सुप्रीम कोर्ट कि हाँ, अगर कोई सिपाही ऐसा करता है, बदनीयती से किसी को मार देता है या किसी बेकसूर को, तो भी क्योंकि फंडामेंटल राइट्स गवर्नमेंट ने छीन लिए हैं, इसलिए उसके खिलाफ कोई कार्रवाई नहीं हो सकती। तो ऐसा शेमफुल जजमेंट भी हुआ सुप्रीम कोर्ट का हमारे इतिहास के अंदर। तो जब लोग कहते हैं कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट बहुत ऊंचा है, इस पे दबाव नहीं हो सकता, लेकिन हमारे सामने बहुत सारे ऐसे एग्जाम्पल हैं कि किस प्रकार सुप्रीम कोर्ट सरकार के दबाव में आता है और सरकार किस प्रकार से सुप्रीम कोर्ट को भी अपने दबाव में लेती है। आजादी के बाद, उसके इमरजेंसी खत्म होने के बाद, उन जजों से लोगों ने पूछा, जर्नलिस्टों ने पूछा कि भाई आपने ऐसा शर्मनाक जजमेंट क्यों दिया। तो उनकी ईमानदारी है उन जजों की, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजों की, उन्होंने पब्लिकली ये कहा कि हम डरे हुए थे, हम डरे हुए थे। बड़े नामी जज थे, मैं नाम नहीं लेना चाहता, लेकिन वो चीफ जस्टिस भी बने बाद में, और सिटिंग जज थे। जब उन्होंने ये कहा अखबारों के अंदर कि हम डरे हुए थे, तो कुछ बार एसोसिएशंस ने एक रेजोल्यूशन भी पास किया कि अरे, ये जो जजेस हैं जिन्होंने एडीएम जबलपुर जजमेंट पास की है, ये कावर्ड है, दे आर कावर्ड्स, कायर हैं। ये अखबारों में छपा, फ्रंट पेज पर भी छपा, और किसी ने कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट डाल दिया, क्योंकि आजकल कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट का बहुत चलन हो रहा है, बहुत कि इसको कंटेम्प्ट कर देंगे, उसको कंटेम्प्ट कर देंगे। तो मैं उस समय की बात बता रहा हूँ, इमरजेंसी के फौरन बाद, जब ये अखबारों में छपा और कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ पिटीशन कोर्ट के अंदर फाइल हुई सुप्रीम कोर्ट में कि भाई ये तो सिटिंग जजेस को ये बैठे हुए हैं और इनको ये कह रहे हैं कि ये कायर हैं, दे आर कावर्ड्स। तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की हिम्मत नहीं हुई कि उस प्रोसीडिंग को चला सके। उन्होंने दाखिल दफ्तर कर दिया कि नहीं नहीं नहीं, हम इग्नोर करते हैं, हम इन बातों पे नहीं जाते। तो ये कैसे हुआ कि सुप्रीम कोर्टों की हिम्मत नहीं पड़ी उस समय, क्योंकि एक जनता की आवाज थी, जनता देख रही थी, जनता आवाज उठा रही थी और कह रही थी कि वाकई में जो ये रेजोल्यूशन पास हुए हैं बार एसोसिएशन ने, कि ये जज कायर हैं, ये वाकई में ये कायर हैं। तो ये मैं इसलिए बता रहा हूं कि ये जब तक हम बोलेंगे नहीं, जब तक हम बोलेंगे नहीं, तो जो उल्टे रास्ते पर जा रहे हैं, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ काम कर रहे हैं, उन पर हम रोक नहीं लगा सकते। तो जनता की आवाज के अंदर बहुत बहुत ताकत होती है। दूसरा जो हम ये देखते हैं कि और आज भी हम जुडिशरी में देखते हैं कि किस प्रकार से मानव अधिकारों का हनन इतना बेशर्मी से हो रहा है कि हैबियस कॉर्पस पिटीशन, जिसको एक अहम माना जाता है कि जिसका फौरन निपटारा होना चाहिए, मैंने भी कई बार सन 80 के दशक में 90 में हैबियस कॉर्पस पिटीशन डाली, उनका 2-4 दिन में, 10 दिन में, 15 दिन में एकदम से फैसला हो जाता था, क्योंकि दे आर कंसिडर्ड वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दे आर द फंडामेंटल राइट, ह्यूमन राइट ऑफ ए पर्सन, सिटीजन। लेकिन अब देखिए कश्मीर के अंदर क्या हुआ है कि इतनी हैबियस कॉर्पस पिटीशन पड़ी हुई हैं और लोग अंदर हैं और उनका अभी तक सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास ये तो टाइम है कि कंटेम्प्ट पिटीशन आए तो उसकी सुनवाई करे, लेकिन जो आम जनता पिस रही है उनकी सुनवाई के लिए उसके पास टाइम नहीं है। और हमारे कई साथी जोन दयाल साहब बताएंगे कि किस प्रकार से जो हमारे ह्यूमन राइट एक्टिविस्ट हैं वो अभी तक जेलों में कई 2-2 साल हो गए, उनको सुनवाई नहीं हो रही, उन पर यूएपीए पता नहीं क्या क्या उन्होंने केस लगा दिए हैं। दूसरा जो गुड गवर्नेंस का आधार ये है कि आप रेस्पॉन्सिवनेस एंड जवाबदेही, अकाउंटेबिलिटी। तो यहाँ पर आप देखिए कि कानून पे कानून एकदम से ये पास किए जाते हैं बगैर उन कानूनों का जिन पे असर होता है उनसे बगैर पूछे ताछे। अब धारा 370 हुआ, धारा 370 पास हुआ, उसमें जो कश्मीर के लोग हैं, जम्मू कश्मीर के लोग, उनसे पूछा ही नहीं गया और वहां वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर 8 अगस्त को पिछले साल भाषण दे रहे थे कि भाई ये ऐसा हमने इसलिए किया है कि डेवलपमेंट होगा, विकास होगा उन लोगों का, उनकी इकोनॉमिक जो कंडीशन है वो आगे बढ़ेगी, ये उन्होंने कहा। तो मुझे हंसी आ रही थी कि इन्होंने इतिहास नहीं पढ़ा। अगर मुझे इमरजेंसी जब खत्म होने वाली थी, इलेक्शन डिक्लेयर हुए थे, तो वो दिन मुझे याद आ रहे थे कि किस प्रकार से अपोजिशन, जब इलेक्शन डिक्लेयर हो गए तो अपोजिशन पार्टीज ने ये कहा भाई हम तो इलेक्शन लड़ नहीं सकते क्योंकि हमारे ज्यादातर लोग अंदर हैं, हमारे पास पैसा नहीं है, वॉलंटियर नहीं है। लेकिन जनता की आवाज थी कि नहीं, आप इलेक्शन लड़िए। और उसमें जो सबसे जो उसका जो स्लोगन था अपोजिशन पार्टीज का, वो था कि फ्रीडम और ब्रेड और फ्रीडम के, क्योंकि इंदिरा गांधी जी कहती थी कि 20 सूत्रीय कार्यक्रम है, उसमें हम आपका इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट होगा, ये फंडामेंटल राइट वगैरह क्या है, ये वो बाद में दे कैन बी टेकन बैक लेटर ऑन। लेकिन जनता की आवाज में ये था। और जो इलेक्शन के अंदर जो स्पीचेस होती थी उस समय ये होता था कि भाई अगर किसी सोने के पिंजरे में किसी चिड़िया को बंद कर दें तो वो सोने जैसे ही वो हमेशा कोशिश करेगी कि ये सोने का पिंजरा खुल जाए तो मैं भाग जाऊं। यानी मतलब ये थे कि आप किसी की आजादी को छीनेंगे और उसको कहेंगे कि हम तुम्हारे लिए दूध देंगे, बहुत अच्छा आपको इकोनॉमिक पोजीशन देंगे, वो बहुत आपका विकास करेंगे, तो वो उनको विकास पसंद नहीं है। सबसे पहले हमें आजादी चाहिए। तो मुझे बड़ी हंसी आ रही थी जब हमारे प्रधानमंत्री भाषण दे रहे थे कि लोगों को जेलों में डाल करके वहां पर कर्फ्यू लगा करके और उन पर एक कह रहे थे कि हमने 370 हटा कर के लिए हम डेवलपमेंट करेंगे। तो ये कैसा डेवलपमेंट? ये तो इतिहास, हमारा इतिहास बताता है, दुनिया का इतिहास बताता है, मानव जाति का इतिहास बताता है कि आजादी और इकोनॉमिक जो डेवलपमेंट है उसके अगर चॉइस की जाए तो लोग आजादी को पसंद करेंगे। तो मैं आपका सारा जब मैं अभी ज्यादा समय नहीं लूंगा, मैं आखिर में इतना ही कहूंगा कि ये संघर्ष अभी जारी है, हमारे मानव अधिकारों के लिए संघर्ष के लिए, गुड गवर्नेंस के लिए ये संघर्ष जारी है। और इसमें हम सबका ये फर्ज हो जाता है कि हमको आवाज जरूर उठानी चाहिए। आवाजों को बंद करने की कोशिश की जा रही है। जिस प्रकार से अब जैसे किसान आंदोलन है, उन्हें कहा अरे ये तो खालिस्तानी है इसमें। जब वो, मैं ये बात जरूर आपको बताना चाहूंगा कि जब मैंने ये सुना इस सरकार का कि भाई ये तो खालिस्तानी इसमें घुसे हुए हैं, तो मुझे 1984-85 का घल्लूघारा याद आ गया, ब्लू स्टार ऑपरेशन। हम कश्मीर पंजाब के अंदर घूमे थे, जगह जगह गए थे और हमने पूछा था लोगों से, हमने रिपोर्ट भी निकाली थी जो बाद में बैन कर दी थी सरकार ने। हमने लोगों से पूछा था कि भाई ये सरकार आपको बदनाम कर रही है कि आप खालिस्तानी हो, हैं, और वो खालिस्तान से हम लड़ रहे हैं, और हम अगर पंजाब के लोगों को नहीं दबाया गया तो यहाँ खालिस्तान बन जाएगा। ये उस समय की सरकार कह रही थी, और सारा मीडिया लगा हुआ था, और उसी मीडिया के सारे इतनी उस समय राजीव गांधी की सीटें 400 से ज्यादा आई थी, ये खालिस्तान का जो स्लोगन उन्होंने दिया। तो हम लोगों से गांव गांव में पूछते थे, वो कहते थे कि हम तो खालिस्तान की हमने कभी मांग नहीं की, हम क्यों खालिस्तान मांगेंगे, हम ये तो सरकार प्रोपेगेंडा कर रही है। तो सरदार कृपाल सिंह जो खालसा दीवान के प्रेसिडेंट थे, उनसे मैंने ये सवाल किया कि कृपाल सिंह जी आप क्या सोचते हैं ये खालिस्तान के बारे में जो प्रोपेगेंडा है? तो उन्होंने कहा, हंसते हुए एक शेर कहा, उन्होंने कहा, चमन को छोड़ दूं, चमन को छोड़ दूं ये दिल लगी भी खूब रही, चमन को छोड़ दूं ये दिल लगी भी खूब रही, हमारा खून बहा है कली कली के लिए। कि हम लोगों ने तो इस देश के लिए हर जगह आजादी के टाइम और बाद में भी इमरजेंसी में हमने तो खून बहाया है, और आप कहते हो कि हम खालिस्तानी हैं। तो ये मतलब किस तरह की सरकार है? क्या रेस्पॉन्सिवनेस जो गुड गवर्नेंस का होना चाहिए कि अगर कोई जनता मांग करती है तो उन लोगों से जाके बात करे, लेकिन उनको बदनाम करने की कोशिश कि तो खालिस्तान है, अर्बन नक्सल है, इस तरह। तो इसमें ये आवाज दबाने की कोशिश कर रही है, और ये इस संघर्ष को हमने आगे बढ़ना चाहिए, और जनता हमेशा हमारे साथ रहेगी। मुझे इस देश की जनता में पूरा विश्वास है, चाहे कैसी भी सरकार है, कुछ भी करने की कोशिश करें, आखिर में लोग उठेंगे और इन ऐसी सरकारों को चलने नहीं देंगे जो मानव अधिकारों का हनन करे, लोगों के खिलाफ काम करे। धन्यवाद।
जी वाणी साहब।
Now I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I think Advocate Pancholi Saab gave a very good view of the experiences we had right from the day we adopted the Constitution. Rather, he started from Karachi Resolution, where the nation, for the nation, a vision was created that we shall be a rights-based democracy where everybody will live with rights and dignity. And later on, definitely because of his experience and actual experience in the field, he could elaborate the experiences where any person, any government, any individual can sometimes, maybe let us say, go astray and then it's the responsibility of the people to tell them, and they must also appreciate their accountability, their responsibility, and by getting to anything rather than human rights is basically against the nation itself. Going against the people and going against the vision of the nation is definitely affecting the image of the nation that way. So whoever he may be, anybody in government or the government itself, anytime earlier, now, this, they must always keep in mind that the nation has shaped a vision for itself that was reflected in Karachi resolution, and then later on we have in the fundamental rights directive principles, the whole of the constitution in the preamble. We have a vision and that should be followed. Now we have, thank you, Advocate and the Pancholi Saab. We would like you to have you many more times so that we get a good view of the things. Now we have with us a very reputed activist, journalist, and a scholar, Dr. John Dayal. He is a very senior journalist, political activist, human rights activist. He is member of National Integration Council, Secretary General of All India Christian Council, and earlier he was the President of All India Catholic Union. He has been from St. Stephen's, Delhi. So he has been a foreign correspondent to many places.
हो गया.
North Africa, many. I think I should not say that he carries a few feathers in his cap. His cap is full with feathers. That's a feathery cap he is wearing, so it will take too much time to talk about them. And he is a friend and a friend of human rights, friend of humanity, a very great person. I request him to kindly get to the floor, the cyber floor, web floor, and give your views on human rights and governance and beyond. So Dr. John Dayal Saab.
I'll speak a little in English and a little more in Urdu.
Yes.
Because Advocate Pacholi spoke only in Urdu and Hindi. So let me just go half. I'm more comfortable in English, but it doesn't really matter. So
you will speak in English, no problems.
Yeah, all right, okay. No, कोई फेसबुक पे बाद में देखेगा तो कम से कम उसको समझ में तो आना चाहिए ना. अंग्रेजी में तो रोज ही बोलते रहते हैं. No, but there are.
Its reach is very wide, John. Its reach is very wide, and you should speak in English if you like.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you so much indeed. It's a pleasure to be with friends. I don't think there is anybody here who I have not met personally, have not worked over the years, and above all, have not had great respect for their commitment to their own community, their commitment to the country, and their commitment to others. They have been nation building, they have been building blocks of a civil society. It's always tough to talk after Pacholi. He's a lawyer, PUCL, he's a humanist, an M.N. Roy expert. There isn't a thing on which he doesn't have a deep-rooted understanding and through which he has not seen this country. Compared to him, I am basically a reporter, a writer. But that also has advantages. 51, 52 years of being a reporter gives you a ringside view. You are there with your own eyes. You're not reading other people's reports. You're not researching in the National Archives. Over the last half a century, my research is my own life experience, what I've seen with these four eyes. Whatever it is, the Punjab, Bhopal gas, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, torture, jails, been arrested myself, been beaten up myself. So I want to take off from where Pacholi Saab left. And because I'm invited to a meeting celebrating the International Human Rights Day and there are thousands of meetings going on. What distinguishes this meeting is the fact that it's organized by the Institute of Objective Studies, founded by the good Dr. Manzoor Alam Khan Sahab. So long, I mean, I've been associated almost from day one with a purpose of nation building and of data, of facts and figures and actualities, not fiction. And then publishing them, bringing them out for other people to see, research, object if required. Objectivity involves the right to give others to object. So let me pick up that object part and have a look at this country. And I begin by saying, and this is something like all of you, I'm also an open book. I don't have two faces, two tongues. I write, I speak what I think, and I never go back on my word. And therefore, as I've always said, the Constitution of India in its literary manner, in the black and white, is possibly better than the United Nations Charter on Human Rights, which was written in a way by Eleanor Roosevelt, but did contain essentially from the same roots from which Ambedkar had taken the Indian Constitution. And therefore, it is not second to the international covenants on human rights. It's almost exactly in many ways superior, because we are a multi-religious, multicultural, multinational society in the Republic of India, and the Constitution, as signed in 49 and promulgated in 50, took care of that. It goes into micro details on freedoms, from the freedom to life itself, on which Pacholi Saab referred to, and he referred to the writ of habeas corpus. And I was in 45, 75, 76, one of the people who filed a writ in the Delhi High Court about my brother who had been picked up by the police for no bloody fault of his. And the late Vijay Chowdhury and his senior were my lawyers. And I know firsthand what the situation was. My brother was, of course, released from the police station, but that is a different story altogether. But the Constitution itself, of course, does not touch on other things like torture, which is something on which I'm very keen that we accept the International Covenant on Torture, because Indian policing will be the better for not having torture. But tragically, the Constitution has been pretty well demolished, as I said, by a colonial, corrupt, and a compliant police, which is basically using the lathi, the third degree, the water cannon, as its main instrument of forensic investigation, of law and order, and of enforcing the rule of law. We are also seeing the Constitution under assault by a feudal local magistracy, the subordinate courts, the IAS officers, the PCS officers, the way the districts and the blocks are governed, where the police, the magistrate, the local Saukar, the BJP chief form a coterie, and they run as if they have a country of their own. And as again, the advocate so beautifully put, the higher judiciary that takes its cues from the ruling clique. Even the Supreme Court over the years, and I've been present in the Supreme Court either as a litigant or just as an observer, when it was litigating, deciding on crucial issues of education and of minority rights, Article 30. And in education, for instance, this I've said at Jamia and at JNU and other places, and at Hamdard, Article 30, when they were discussing, they were so keen to say that minority institutions are crucibles of nation building, because all sorts of people, Jamia has more Hindus than Muslims. St. Stephen's has certainly more Hindus than Christians. And the Supreme Court said they were crucibles of nation building. And then the Supreme Court hammered the hell out of these institutions. So the higher judiciary also takes its cues and its clues from the ruling clique. And sometimes it totally, absolutely, abjectly succumbs for greed, for future office, or for fear, or because it shares the ruling government's point of view on what constitutes the Indian nation. Is the Indian nation for Hindus? Should we have a Havan for a new parliament? Should we apply tilak on a fighting jet which kills? Should we call, if you want to be secular, also a mullah and a padri to put some water? What is secularism as defined by the Constitution? And what is secularism as practiced by the Prime Minister, by the Chief Minister, by the Chief Justice? These are issues that burrow deep and make the Constitution hollow to that extent. As Pathology was saying, it was so even in the past. Mrs. Gandhi was no angel, but now the clues from the ruling ideological establishment come thick and fast, and the establishment is hell-bent the last 6 years riding roughshod over the citizens to create the theocratic state it supposedly promised us in its political manifesto. And therefore, the rule of law, the very foundation of a modern state, is under threat. And I say this with gravity, with tears in my eyes, and with a sense of responsibility. The rule of law, the very foundation of a modern state, is under threat. The International Human Rights Day, therefore, inevitably sees the massive protests by the farmers of India, who are 80% of the population, who fear they are being sold out to corporate kings from the home state of the Prime Minister, Gujarat, Mr. Ambani, Mr. Adani, who want to be the middleman, the Artiya, the super Artiya, who want to convert every farmer into a pet who will grow what they want to, GM or tobacco or drugs or potato, who knows, or whatever. But what they think will sell, what they can export, and the farmer would have to do it. Bandhua Mazdoor is not even beginning to describe the situation of the Indian farmer. The tribals have seen the might of Adani. What he can do, he can move mountains, not in the biblical sense. He can move mountains with his bulldozers, digging into the wealth of the tribal. He can convert a forest into a banjar. He can not just break church or a temple or a mosque. He can break the heart of people. We've seen that. And we know what is happening in these areas, why people pick up the guns. I'm not defending them. I am a pacifist. I hate violence. I hate the death penalty also. Apart from omelets, perhaps a chicken or whatever, I hate any bloodshed. And therefore, that gives, in many ways, that in a way empowers my work. Otherwise, people who love violence cannot really take up human rights. But why should we be sold out to the corporates? Our independence to grow, to sell, to eat what we will is part of our human rights. It's a part of the right to live. I want to eat gehu, I will eat gehu. I want to eat beef, I will eat beef, or pork, or whatever else. You are crushing my right to food, and through it also my right to religion. And the two are integrated in many ways. And in another way, and I just wrote a very long, careful article on the situation of our jails. But I will not go into that because there's no time, but I could later maybe on the seminar. But a part of it is what we've seen in the case of my friend, Father Stan Swami, and my other friends who are in jail with him. Navlaka, all of them, they're common friends of ours, and tomorrow any one of us could be in jail. Some of us are in our late 70s, but the people who are in prison are in their 80s. I myself am a diabetic. They are on the verge. They're quadriplegics. All four limbs, they can't move. Ji Sai Baba. Stan himself, his hands shiver with Parkinson. You can't, and you take a month to give him a straw. Navlakha, I don't know if he has still got his spectacles or no. He's nearly blind without spectacles. Sai Baba, they go to court, they've gone on to court so many times that he needs to be released, dying. And they're killing him. He needs 2 people to take him to the toilet and bring him back to give him a bath, to give him injections. And his wife goes there, they don't even allow. What is, they have no heart, they have no mind, they have no concern for humanity. And they dare celebrate human rights day, say that India is a human rights observing country. Shame on them. And shame on us, shame on me, that we are not out there challenging both COVID and them and fighting them on the road with the farmers. I would like to, but I don't know. I'm frightened of COVID. And they're using COVID to erode all our rights. And I've not even mentioned Dalits. I mean, it's like the Muslims. You pick up their boys, you kill them, saying you're cow protectionists and they're selling beef. And then you file cases. And I and Harsh Mandar and Karma and Mohabbat, we went to almost the victims of lynchings. And what do we find there? Apart from the violence of the lynching, we find the cases are against the relatives. And we find that in UP. The girl is raped and killed. And another girl is raped and her father is killed. And here, her brothers and her uncles, everybody has cases against them. What is this? Where are we going? And this is what worries me. I should finish, but let me just talk about 2 issues which are also interconnected. The situation of minorities. And I say this because very few people speak about it. Islamophobia has silenced even the NGOs. I'm not saying they're Islamophobic, but the fear if they defend Muslims, they will be called pro-Pakistan, they'll be called names, IS, whatever, Hawala money. And the Christians for whom FPR, we are a poor community, the money came from Germany and from England and from Rome, and it came via FCRA, not Hawala. And just tightening the screws so that NGOs can't work. You can't do human rights, you can't do legal defense, you can't do empowerment, you can't work with the tribals, you can't stage a morcha, you can't distribute books and notes and posters. You're using the cover of COVID, the curfew of COVID, to crack down on civil society. You're dividing people. Islamophobia is used, love jihad is used to divide you. You have communalized and corporatized also, I would say, love jihad. You have made love itself. Jesus Christ died and could not teach people how to make them love anybody. How can anybody teach people how to love? How can anybody, you can induce people by love, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's what a mother uses to get the child to obey. And that's what every wife and every husband should do. They should love each other. The only good marriage is a love marriage. If the parents agree, so much the better. And you've criminalized it. And you think you're helping people? I can tell you, I know the Hindus. I have them in my family also. They're not going to, they will buy, some idiots will buy it for a short while, but they will see that they are the victims eventually. Because once you break up communities by religion, next you break up them up by caste and then subcaste, and everybody knows eventually that this man and his government are for not communities. They are for people who finance their politics, no more, no less. And we will not allow human rights and the Constitution to be at the mercy of people who control the purse strings that control the government and the governance of the day. Long live human rights and long live my friends, so that we continue to struggle for the coming generations. As we said, Jai Bhim, Jai Masih, Jai Hind.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, John. I think John said in the beginning, he was, besides everything, a reporter. And he did definitely referring to Objective Studies Institute, that he gave a very good report of all what's happening, and then persuading anybody to say that we don't have a very good picture of human rights. Rather than getting to any other kind of this situation, and we have to definitely promote human rights for nation building for the benefit of everybody. I think I would not like to repeat all what he said, but I would say that anybody should turn his attention towards all these things, because these are human. They are basically the things which have to be seen, and then only one can become human that way. And now we have another friend with us. He is Shri Vidya Bhushan Rawat, and I would say he is born a human rights activist, a defender of human rights, as he says, and he's fully in that. And he has produced many documentaries. He has written some books also, and yeah, he about Dalits, about women, about minorities. And he is one thing I would like to mention about him that's very important. He may not believe in God, but he believes in dissent. So whatever may be there, a person should have a right to dissent, and then only he will be having, unless he has the right, absolute right to express his thought. We cannot tell that he is living as a human, because the first quality which differentiates a human being from others is a plant is also having the life, but a human being is more in conversation, in expression of grief, of pain, pleasure, happiness. And that's what he believes. And he does not believe in orthodoxy that way. And definitely he is an admirer of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar ji. He has been a very good revolutionary, and he forged consensus through the Constituent Assembly, and that's how we are having this constitution with us. That was his intellectual capacity, the energy behind, the motivation for all that, and his understanding and intellectual capacity, that he could navigate all troubles, and then definitely gave us a very good constitution. That way, his role has to be appreciated. I would rather say that he had best understood the freedom fighters and freedom struggle for what it was. And that's when he understood it, he enshrined maximum things in the constitution. And that all is, I would say, that we have a reflection of Baba Sahib with us in the form of Vidya Bhushan Rawat ji. He is advocating things in his own way, very objectively. We should appreciate it, and then give floor to him, the webinar floor or the cyber floor I am giving to him. And now, Rawat Saab, please come and now express.
Thank you, Professor Vani, and thank you to Institute of Objective Studies for organizing this important webinar on the occasion of the International Human Rights Day. So, thank you for your wonderful introduction. I am a dissenter, but I defend the rights of the people to have faith, to enjoy their life, to enjoy their love, and to enjoy their food. So I am an absolute, in that terms, defend the rights of people, because food is a culture, so is faith. And I can sit with all religious people. I don't feel all religious people are bad and all non-religious people are great. So it's basically working together for the common cause that is more important. So this is International Human Rights Day, and normally it has become a pattern to celebrate it, but it is also a time to introspect what is happening. And when this whole the International Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted in 1948 on 10th December, this was a very good document. After that, there are other documents which are very important in the international human rights. There are treaties, there are covenants, like international covenants on civil and political rights, international covenants on economic, social, and cultural rights. And there are other than women's, for women, there is CEDAW, this Convention on Women's Rights, and universal periodic reviews are there for the government. What I am saying is that that time it was envisaged that, you know, democracy is the best form to protect the right of the people. Now, in the 21st century, we have democracies hijacked by the corporate system, the corporate culture. And in that corporate culture, the democracy is just being used as a tool. And in the past, all the countries which has multicultural societies used to be very proud of their multicultural heritage. India was one of the biggest and most diverse countries, and we were proud of it. But what is happening in the 21st century to ensure that the corporate rule uninterruptedly and control the governance system, one community is often being blamed or vilified so that the majoritarianism comes in. And this is happening not merely in India, but mostly all the colonial countries. And that is the saddest part. That's I'm talking about that, what is happening in India, happening in neighboring Bangladesh, happening in neighboring Pakistan, or Sri Lanka, or Myanmar, where we find that a minority is being vilified. So everybody, everywhere, there is this corrupt system, the corrupt democratic process, where, you know, somebody has to come to power. It is the elite classes of that country that comes. They vilify because they don't work. They have to work to please the corporate and the people who fund them, and then without work and how to deviate from those issues, which are the real issues, they then vilify communities. And this is happening. And it is very, very important for us to understand this. Democracy is not just merely elections, that you go and vote and somebody win the election and we are democratic in a 5 years time. Democracy is my right to be listened. Democracy is inclusion. Democracy is participation in the power structure. And as India's white people, like if we talk about the Dalits, the Adivasi, the backward classes, the minorities, as they seek responses from the power, that we should be heard, that we should be made, you know, part of the power structure, then all this thing happens. The entire process is to deny people their legitimate representation, and then create certain conditions where there is people are always in perpetual war. And so that, you know, the clique colonize. So this is, we fought against the British colonialism, and the slogan that time was Swarajya, our own governance system. And you know, the RSS never talked about Swarajya. If you ever heard Lal Krishna Advani and the days, his heydays, he has been talking about Suraj, better governance, as if the Rajya is the fundamental rights of the Brahminical elite of this country. That's what they wanted to tell us. That Swarajya means where the Dalits can ask, the minorities can ask, you know, my right to be included, I can also govern myself, you know. And Suraj means that I hand it over to all those so-called Manuwadis who think they are born to rule India. So that is the whole concept, and those people are today ruling us, have the same thing in mind. Now, we talk about institutions in democracy. So everybody say, oh, democracy by the people, for the people, of the people, and democracy. We have media, we have civil society, we have social movements, political opposition, we have dissenters, minorities, judiciary. Now, if we take all these things, where are we? Where are we in this? You see, just yesterday, there was a comment by the CEO of the Niti Aayog. His name is Amitabh Kant. And Amitabh Kant made a statement that too much of a democracy is hurting the economic growth. Now, these are the very dangerous people. I would say that, I don't know how they become IAS and become part of this, but that is how their quality is. They want to get into, into the bigger power structure. If that means they want to tell us that a good governance is not possible in democracy. Can you imagine this statement coming from the bureaucrats? And these bureaucrats, those who, we feel proud of, I don't feel proud of them, because I know they always, they have been part of the power structure. It is they who decide, who make all these laws. These laws are not being made by the two honorable leaders from Gujarat, but all coteries surrounding them, who are giving them ideas how to, which can be the best way. Most of the civil servants today actually are looking for the future post-retirement pastures, which only the Ambanis can give them, the Adanis can give them much more bigger salaries than what they are getting today. And that is where they have started supporting or indirectly, making things easier for them. So this is, we talk about freedom of expression. Now, there was a World Press Freedom Index. Every year they give it. And India was ranked something around 153 or 42, much below Sri Lanka and Nepal, a little bit above than Pakistan. The problem with the Indian elite at this moment is that we are, obsessed with Pakistan all the time. So when we compare ourselves with a failed state like Pakistan, तो सारा का सारा दिमाग में पाकिस्तान का गोबर है, चाइना से तो मुकाबला कर नहीं सकते. We can't think that in good governance we can talk about Norway, Sweden, Denmark, or France, Germany, England. So in good governance, हमारे लिए Pakistan. So if we are above Pakistan, then we think we have won the World Cup, whether we are defeated elsewhere. So this is the problem with all those people who cannot face the comparisons of democracy and human rights, because elsewhere, what is freedom? A right to free speech doesn't exist in our country. It is these days, if it were available that easily, it is available to the people like Arnab Goswami. The toxic program that he does, or that program, that channel, I forgot the name, which has been abusing Muslims day and night, or that Bollywood heroine who has been sending these poisonous tweets, they get defense. And our court says that freedom of expression is so important. I was asking, where are the freedom of expression for, as John Dayal was saying, as Pancholi ji was saying, for, say, Father Stan Swami, who is 80 years age, or Varavara Rao, who is post 80. Both are in a very bad shape. Where is it for even Gautam Navlakha and Anand Teltumde, who are above 70? And there is not a single case against them in terms of all their life. They have advocated human rights, rule of law, constitution. We don't find them, abusing people or accusing people, or doing rebel-rousing thing, which the public, elected leaders did in elections or during, the Delhi riots. It doesn't happen. But that is how things are happening. And unfortunately, the biggest defense for human rights was basically coming from judiciary in the past. We were really proud of that. There were judges like Justice Krishna Iyer, Justice Tarkunde, or Justice Rajendra Sacha, and they really did a lot of work, went out of their way. But today we are in a situation where courts are not finding time for even the serious cases, and the state has found a way to get their illegitimate thing approved by the courts. So anything that is people don't like, it is passed through courts, whether reservation issues, whether minority rights issues, habeas corpus issues, they are continuously being delayed and not heard. So when we say that justice delayed is justice denied, and there are people who need, even the political prisoner, they are required to be heard, and they have their rights. They have a right to get treatment. But we don't, one side we say that the people have a right to get bail. Other side, under the laws, these draconian laws, where anybody can be arrested, and without charge sheet, people languish in the court, in the jails for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and there is no charge sheet. And this is such a, what we call the tyranny of the majority, tyranny of the elected. So can democracy be allowed to be made as tyranny of the elected? Just because you are elected. So I have a problem with when you say, the rule of law, because rule of law is passed by this elected government. What I say is the time has come, and I would say that way, for the international human rights instrument to be made stronger, more implementable, and I would definitely like international court of justice kind of thing for the dictators, for the authoritarian regimes, so that whatever they do is accountable at certain point in time. It happened after Hitler in the Nuremberg trials, because it's for the world over. The dictators are growing, they are becoming powerful because people like masculine leaders, whether we have in Philippines, whether we have in Pakistan, or whether in Sri Lanka, everywhere, people, somewhere the majoritarianism is there, the religious fundamentalism is growing, and the religious fundamentalism of the majority makes the minority villain, and then it gives rich dividends to the political elite who are basically working for the corporate. So that's the nexus. In India, I call it the priestly classes versus and the corporate. Those have joined hand. Jyotiba Phule said, "Sethji Bhatji ki jodi." So they have joined hand and wanting to control everything. So it's the people who become the biggest threat to them. So democracy, we have to think about our electoral system also in the longer term, and we have to think about the international instrument also and strengthen them, because in most of the developing world, judiciaries have also compromised. They can't take a decision. We don't have a Jagmohan Lal Sinha kind of a judge who can take head on to the head of the state. So this happens. So it is important that human rights instrument, the legal instrument, internationally also get strengthened, so that even the corporate houses, which are multinationals, which are transnational, like we have, just about 30 years, 40 years back, this Bhopal gas tragedy happened, and how Warren Anderson, the head of the Union Carbide, was allowed to run away from Bhopal courtesy of our courts. So it is important that all those things must be made accountable, whether the political leaders, whether the head of the transnational corporation, and wherever the the judicial system in the third world countries, or not, we don't call now third world, but so-called developing countries, they are compromised. We have to think of international instruments and ask to strengthen them. So that is what I would say, that in today's time, all our movements, which we should have been proud of in our democracy, that people are raising, social movements, civil society, everything has been vilified and made we versus them. So it's a very sad situation. But then these movements gives us hope also. And hope is that people of this country basically are proud of its rich heritage. The war that we fought against the British, 1857 or later on, the people fought together. The historical and heroic struggle of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar or Jyotiba Phule or Periyar is a reminder that people will ask for their rights, whether you like it or not like, and it will continue to happen. So if people think those ruling elite or ruling power, if they think that they can suppress people with just, with these kind of a disinformation campaign, because these days media is being used to spread lies and disinformation about the opponents, about the activists, about the movements. This is sad part. We all are the citizen of this country. We all have faith in the constitution of this country, and we are proud of it. And a movement or political dissent or social fight for social justice is not against the constitution. It is to strengthen the constitution. It is to bring people into the mainstream, and it is to allow people to have their right, which even the Universal Declaration, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights came, it was after long struggle. There was slavery, there was colonialism, there was violence against women, there were a lot of things, and all are part of that. So I think it is best for us not just merely think of that human rights are good, but also introspect and also look to the new realities. And we must talk about our political system also. In America, the political system right now faced and resisted the tyranny of the president. He was defeated. He wanted to stop it. He wanted to hijack the election. But because the institutions were strong, they could protect their country. So America is protected. The people of America, the bureaucracy of America, the media of America, the civil society of America protected them. And it is time we should start thinking of that. A lot of it depends on our judiciary, our media, and our civil society is doing its work. Social movements are doing their work. But the responsibility also now lies on media and judiciary. Hope they will listen to their conscience and they will stand up with the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rawat. It was brilliant, it was comparative, it was empirical, and it was based on the experiences you have all around. Now I am requesting Professor Afzal Wani, who is Vice Chairman of Institute of Objective Studies, Professor of Law in GGS University, Delhi, ex-Dean, University School of Law and Legal Studies, and above all, a very committed soul, a very clear mind, and a very sincere human being. I request him to express his view on this.
Thank you, sir. Actually, I had thought that now I have to compare, and then I'll now invite you to give the presidential remarks.
But I would not let you go like this.
I may say one or two things.
Yeah.
One is, as just now, Rawatji, I'm grateful to him for a good exposition of things. When he talked of understanding and accepting new realities, and then difficulties, they have been very much there from the very beginning. And even when the 10 amendments to the American Constitution were being adopted, even at that time, we can't say that that is the whole thing. So that had to grow with time, and the commitment had to be there behind. And that's how what comes to my mind is Thomas Jefferson then at that time told to James Madison that half a loaf is better than no bread. So at least we should have something, and we can build on it. And the best thing is we should understand the situation as it has been described by Pancholi Saab and John Dayal and B.D. Rawat ji. And what I would like to say at the moment is that there is, there is something like politics of human rights. There is politics for human rights, and there is politics and human rights. I think we must reject the first two. We must not go for politics of human rights for human rights. We should go for politics and human rights. And that should be for the advancement. And you will see if 30 clauses of Universal Declaration of Human Rights are understood well, and at that time, when this Eleanor Roosevelt, she was saying that we must weigh every word as the chairperson of drafting committee of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. She was saying we must weigh every word so that it becomes understandable to everybody, to common man. Because this was the agenda to be adopted for governance. These are the rights which state has to make available. The impression goes that the rights will be violated, and then you will refer to the Universal Declaration and Fundamental Rights clause in the Constitution and then file the petition. No, that's not the basic. That is, when you are compelled to do it. Basic thing is that the state has the responsibility to advance these things. That has to be the basis of the governance. It has to be on the edifice of human rights. Whenever you have to make a policy, you have to think of development. Whenever you have to take off any action, it has to be based on it. So it's not to increase the litigations and all that. It's not to say we have the rights and then okay, remedies available. That's all right, that has to be, but it's not that you will do anything and then say the remedy is available. I think that has to be taken note of. And another point with which after that I'll request the chairperson to give the remarks. That's what I was wondering, that we do have this Article 32 and Article 226. This is very important from practical point of view. That's whenever there is any infringement of the right, you are going to Supreme Court under Article 32 and to the High Court under Article 226. But there has been a very wisely put clause in Article 32 that the Supreme Court can authorize any other court also to look into the violations of fundamental rights. I think there should be, the Supreme Court should now authorize the district judges at the district level that all people cannot, for their violations, come to the High Court, go to the Supreme Court. It should be a countrywide kind of mechanism available anywhere that you can, contest for your rights at any level. At district level, it will be accessible to anybody. So we should have a true human rights regime with rights available and at the same time remedy available nearest to your doorsteps. And that's why that clause has been put in the Constitution. Sometimes, unfortunately, it so happens that we have very good clauses in law, but they are not taken note of because people are so much obsessed with other things. And I believe that that clause should be read, and that should be understood. And if district judges are not given, then there should be a network. It's not a big thing to appoint 600 another judges. They must take the stock of human rights violations, fundamental rights violations at the district levels, or at least in the regions. There must be that those human rights courts must be established so that people will have access to all these things. Because regulation has increased, complexity is in administration, and then people have got now more aspirations, more people are coming forward to develop, and there are definitely more possibilities of violations as well, and therefore the system has to be geared up. And that's basically the governance. And one more thing I would like to say, when I see from the local level to the national and international level, all what is in the in the documents, in constitution, in conventions. More stress is given on trade and profit making, then lowering of the tariff facilities for, yes, under the international legal regime, there is much for welfare also, there is much for upliftment also, there is much for protecting the rights of the people also, there is much against genocide as well, there is much against statelessness. I think those all those provisions in the international law, they must be brought to the focus, and that can be a very good celebration of the International Human Rights Day. And this day it should be done, and a good content of the subjects taught at the school level and later must be human rights oriented. And I think we use a lot of time, and I do keep speaking, but this time I think I must stop here, and then I would like to request Professor Zadam Khan Saab for his words of wisdom, so that we can conclude it in a better way. Professor Zad M. Khan, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Vani. I've got only 2-3 points to make. So far as the details of good governance is concerned, these have been amply covered by all the speakers, and various other sections and various other corners are touched upon. The environment in which we are living in a developing world is becoming slowly and gradually very dangerous, because the state is acquiring more and more power in the name of welfare state. You want to do something about the people of the country, and you acquire more power and more power, and you are demolishing all sections, all avenues of dissent, all avenues of other kind of voices which can be heard. This is one phenomena that is taking place. Second phenomena is that the colonial systems, colonial tricks, and colonial mentality is not going. It is still persisting, and persisting in a very acute fashion, and very fiercely it is being put forward by the governing system. Countries like India, they have got a lot of difficulty because of its size. You can contain any problem in one area, and then you can say everything is fine. For instance, the agitation, the Kisan agitation, farmers agitation. You can localize any incident of any quantum, of any dimension, to a zero situation, and you can say we have controlled it. I mean, the police is behaving like military, like armed forces. Police is not meant for this. The way you have treated your farmers, the way you have treated all your other things, I mean, the Shaheen Bagh and all these voices which were heard, these were not very adequately dealt with. In this situation, what should we do? What steps really should be taken up? I think the first thing, Rawat has also hinted on this, the role of international voice is important now. International organizations and international voices, because you have got not only formal international organizations, there are lots and lots of voluntary groups which are international and which look into problems of very many sections of society, and they do care about the plight and the situation of people in the developing world. So international voice is very important. This has to be looked into. It should be worked on as how should the local groups have got a linkages, have got the relationship with these international groups, so that they can help each other in situation of crisis. Second is that the NGOs space is still available. You have got governmental space, you have got other spaces which are filled with the government agencies, but the space which is available for voluntary organizations and NGOs is still available, and we should try to strengthen NGOs for raising the voice of those who are suffering in these countries. Another point is that there should be a serious effort to create mass media channels. Because if mass media channels are controlled by the corporate sector, then the whole thing is gone. Because mass media is the tool of demonizing people now. If this situation goes on, that nobody will dare to speak for those who deserve to be protected from the system. The system will do the way they like. And the last thing I would like, that there should be a constant work on election reforms, on constituencies management, on delimitation, on police reforms. These all sections should be taken up by professional organizations, and they should come forward with a blueprint that what sort of uh, arrangements and what sort of improvements, reforms are required. For these reforms, there should be proper mechanism to push them forward so that these are really accepted by the people, if not by the government. And a time will come that the government will also have to accept these things. I mean, the Indian situation is not very good. There is a World Bank report, and India stands on the position of 111th position in good governance, kind of a thing. So India is such a vast country, such a country full of resources, and everything is fine. But the situation is very bad, and we should look into very seriously. Institute of Objective Studies, within its limitations, is doing a little bit to serve the cause in these directions. But I think much more is needed, and much powerful organizations should really take up these projects. I think this is what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom, and I believe that we should conclude it now, and in its duty and for the attainment of its objectives and the vision, we at the IOS, along with our chairman, Dr. Manzoor Alam Saab, we are trying to contribute towards nation building and find a state which shall be commanding respect among the committee of nations on merit. And we should come to the top of this human rights list of human rights abiding compliant countries, and we should be the best. I believe that we have to be very open-minded, take a critical stock of things at every level, and then be constructive and aspire that we can keep contributing better, and especially taking note of the underprivileged and those who are not having the access to the resources, access to the institutions, and then how institutions must have access to the people. So with that all, I would like to again thank Advocate Andy Pancholi Saab and Dr. John Dayal Saab, and then this Vidya Bhushan Rawat ji and Professor Zadam Khan, and the whole technical staff of the Institute of Objective Studies, and also to myself for being in this webinar on this International Human Rights Day and trying to contribute a bit in this human rights movement, so that the world becomes a little bit better than what it is. And I may again say that Mrs. Roosevelt had another observation at that time when she said, "Look to the world. Where do we find human rights? Human rights are absent everywhere in the world." And today, after so many years now, we should have an eye on the situation in the world and see that how much we have come ahead in the advancement of human rights. I think in that endeavor and the endeavor which was, you know, given to us by the Constitution of India, in that I think iOS is also trying to contribute a little bit so that we attain the goals of our constitution and the human rights agenda and give the better face and better position to our nation. So with all this, I again thank all the speakers and all those who participated. I am grateful to all those who joined this meeting, and they are most important, and I think they showed interest about it. Human rights is has been very important, is very important, shall be very important, and ultimately it is the goal we have to attain. You can read any of the best of the books, whether revealed or constitutions. You will find there that ultimately the object has to be having humanity, better humanity, human rights, and then all should respect the others with responsibility. That's the duty. So I would say God bless you all and thank you for being with us. And I wish the best to everybody whoever participated or whoever spoke on the occasion. Thank you all. And I believe when we'll meet, God willing, next year, we should have a better human rights position in the world. And the COVID must have also had its impact, a positive one, so that we change the mindset that way. God bless you all. Thank you so